today. Wow, that would be awesome. Okay. Um, really full day again with the news. This is day 1955 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room on Fort Bliss and taken to the arms room because it's a soundproof room, and his life was taken there, and his body was stolen. He fought hard. Um, our information is that one of the perpetrators had to have emergency dental surgery afterwards. But these were big guys. And they took Richard's life, and he was then stolen. His body was stolen off of Fort Bliss. When I say that, I mean, there had to be help, or there had to be help with the security there to turn off the videos, right? To turn off the CCTV footage, to allow to pass through the gate guards, to get to the border and allowed to pass through that. You have to have, uh, you know, certain passes and things like this. And of course, we know that the funeral business is deep in this. Um, we know individuals that work for the funeral business and mortuary affairs are deep in this, or suspects, right? I mean, you have former CIA, yeah, I think so too. CID agent Tavita Nusa, who had his badge revoked, but his brother is Solomon Anusa, right? Major in charge of mortuary operations on Fort Bliss. So they had absolutely loads of people because they needed those people in those special places to do their trafficking, right? So they did have that in place to move Richard's remains. It was absolutely possible, and it absolutely happened. And we have the um, the whole board of inquiry admitting that you know Richard is no longer alive. And then we have, of course, President Trump taking it to the fullest step that matches. Of course, President Trump is very, very careful. He's not just going to say things, right? He has to back everything up. Um, so, so of course, his letters are a huge force within the law enforcement community and the intelligence community, because it absolutely, both of his letters, we received two letters, both together corroborate everything that our evidence had shown. And of course, they have even more evidence. So it was that, Richard was forcibly taken uh, and taken to the arms room. He lost his life. Uh, his body was stolen off of Fort Bliss, and a cover up ensued where they dismembered him, and these are really people that never think straight, right? They just don't think straight. Um, Dismembered, and they're trying to cash in on him because they're greedy, cash in on him in every which way. And his remains, partial remains, end up, of course, in Juarez, and at we believe all the evidence is at Plenitude Crematorium. Um, so, we're waiting for all the uh, remains to be identified. They're very, very slow on that. And it's because they're implicated, right? They're implicated, and now we have this magnificent, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit about the cartels, and because you can't get away from it, it's all over this. And we were told over and over again, people would call us and say, "Oh, the cartels are not involved. The cartels are not involved." And the first time we heard that, we were like, "Okay, the cartels are then involved because they're telling us it's not. They've been lying to us from the beginning, so they're lying to us about this, and the cartels are involved." And sure enough, they are. They are very, very involved in this. Um, billionaire cartels involved in this. Um, so it is really uh, important to understand why what was happening. Um, why would they go to such lengths to shut Richard up? Right? Why would they go to such lengths? Um, and everything points to those letters, right? The letters that President Trump sent us that absolutely confirmed that Richard was a whistleblower, that he was more than a whistleblower. He was like a whistleblower on steroids, and that his name is indelible. Okay, that is a strong statement coming from President Trump, and it tells you a lot. And he absolutely notified us that he's trying to get accountability and the fullest penalty for what they've done, which is the death penalty. That needs to be on the table. He concurred to that, and it, and Richard Halliday and President Trump are very tied together. They are so tied together because Richard was President Trump's whistleblower at Fort Bliss on the border. On the border. Everything about President Trump's policies and his entire campaign was about the border wall. Remember the big trouble that he got into for saying that he's going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. He got into so much trouble, like that was some kind of racist statement, instead of saying, wait a minute, we are being sucked dry. We have a deficit. We have a deficit, and it's making our country poorer. So we need to build a wall, um, and the making Mexico pay for it was an admission that he knew that there was a lot of fraud going on and extortion out of the American coffers. Okay, so it had nothing to do with race. And a person like President Trump, he's been in uh, entertainment, and his financials are so absolutely jaw-dropping, because he has property everywhere, all over the world. So you can't have that, negotiate with people all over the world, with, every religion, every race, every, you just can't. And he is just absolutely not what they want to call him, because he has property everywhere. Why would he want to have tower after tower after tower right there in Seoul, Korea, right? In Seoul, Korea. Um, why would he? It's Korean there. It's Korean. It's probably the most, when you go there, because I've been there many, many times. It is just so Korean, right? It is so Korean. And here I come with, my blonde hair, and, you get a lot of people talking to you, a lot of people that, because they're staring at you, because you stick out. Um, it's very Korean there. And, why would anybody, uh, it just proves the narrative that they wanted you to think that he was racist or something like that is just all false, all the time. And he just deals with people all the time. And, people say, I'm a cheerleader for President Trump. And I'd say, yeah, yeah, I am. I am. I'm a cheerleader for President Trump because he's the only one that seems to be getting anything done, even with all of the blocking, even with all of the sabotage, even with all of the spies and the mutiny, the mutinous traitors within the system. He seems to still be getting something done. I mean, I just watched a little documentary on the new ballroom, and it's a wowzer. I mean, you just have to think of everything when you build a ballroom like that. It's just, if you haven't, it's on YouTube, or yeah, I think it was on YouTube. Maybe it was on Amazon, but you just go and search for this little 10, 20-minute video on uh, his ballroom and what it's going to be like. It is absolutely amazing. And that's with, so much people that don't want it. That don't want it. Once you see the video, you'll be like, "Yeah, build that thing. You thought of everything. Build it, build it. It'll make the White House better too because it'll secure the foundations better. Because the foundation's pretty old, right? Everything. It's just, all the narratives about him are absolutely false, and he's getting things done, and he's getting things done in Richard's case. Um, Biden wasn't doing anything. He was Sleepy Joe Biden. And what he was doing was allowing trafficking to flow, absolutely flow. And we know that because it happened. It happened right in front of our eyes. So President Trump is not putting up with that. And and you know um and I think there's a reason for it. I don't think he's connected to this group. And this group is pretty big. It has a lot of powerful billionaires and millionaires, and yet President Trump is not connected to them. So let's get started with the cartel. Right now, let's focus on the Sinaloa cartel, because the Sinaloa cartel was started by two brothers, or well, friends, right? The El Chapo and El Mayo, and they look like, I think they look related, um, but in that area, to spread the way they did, uh, it really hits the Nova Casa Grandes, Colonial Dublin, and um, the other Mormon-held areas. Uh, these Mormon-held areas are absolutely, um, plays a huge part in this. Okay, a really big part, because it seems that they've intermingled. The cartel has intermingled with the Mormons that went down there. And they've also intermingled with the Germans that were sent to Biggs Air Force Base, or White Sands Missile Range, or and they did business. They did business. Um, And so, to talk about the cartel, I don't think you can talk about the cartel without talking about this Mormon faction. And the names are big, because you have people that you really having, quote unquote, settled there in Nova Casa Grandes and that surrounding area. Um, and of course, they have the magnificent school there, and it really is magnificent. Um, but they also are up to no good. They're also absolutely up to no good. And they've commingled themselves with the cartel. And so crimes are bound to happen, right? It all becomes about survival, survival and survival of your um, lifestyle, right? Your lifestyle, because when you are dealing in narcotics and when you're trafficking these things and trafficking children and trafficking weapons and trafficking arms, you can make quite a lot of money, a lot of money. And, so this, it becomes a real hazard to uh, a legitimate military or a legitimate government. Um, and then infiltrated. It has infiltrated, and we know that it's totally taken over Chihuahua. The cartel, the Mormon faction cartel tied uh, network has taken over Chihuahua, and it has uh, huge connections into El Paso. And one of those is Woody Hunt, right? Woody Hunt, and there's lots more. And in Richard's case, of course, there's Connell Witten and the FBI, and Leilani Hart, and Tavita Nusa, and Dallas Hart, um, and it, Mormon or not, Jonathan Ambrose is absolutely tied to them because of Danae Katzen, right? So there's an overwhelming amount of people that are part of this Mormon faction. And if you're part of the Mormon faction, you are connected to the cartel because they've intermingled over the years with their intermingled with marriages and everything, um, children and everything. And so you can't talk about one without the other, right? Um, so that's why you have, like, if you do forensics on El Maru Campos, Galvan, her mother, and so many of these other individuals that are in power, they all score very, very high because they've been intermingling all these decades, and they have these positions of power. And of course, today I release that there is an article out that is just a wowzer that really calls out something very, very important, that Plenitude Crematorium is connected to this drug trafficking and human organ harvesting and trafficking. Um, that is huge news, huge. So everything that, with Richard's name has been uh, totally vindicated. And so where do you go with that? If the cartel has infiltrated in our government agencies and government organizations, and Richard was reporting into our military, and you have to have somebody in human resources that square that away, that they end up in El Paso. I mean, one of the pictures I put up, someone commented, Dallas Hart, that's a specialist. That was a specialist rank. And you're saying that he's a platoon leader. And I'm like, yeah, and I probably shouldn't put that picture up and explain it better. Um, but I think that picture just shows his face before he fixed it up a little, um, and maybe it was because of being hit in the mouth. Um, but this is he was enlisted before he became an officer, And, we know a lot about that because of our military experience. He knew somebody. I'm going to tell you that right now. People pulled strings for him and protected him. And I did communicated with his coach, his football coach, because Dallas Hart played football. And I knew right away by the response of the coach that this was absolutely no good person, very fearful. There had to be cartel involved. There absolutely had to be cartel. So the cartel connections are, well, we know that Governor Maru is cartel, right? She's a Chapitos um, a part of the El Chapo's group, right? She's the El Chapitos. And, uh, you know, when you have a whole government, a whole state government that is cartel, then you're having to deal with a cartel um, every day, right? You're uh, and as an American or as a negotiator or whatever, and I think that's why the negotiating moved over to another person, and has the um, well, the pressure to get out in the news, the Plenitude Crematorium, the organ harvesting, the drug trafficking, the human trafficking, the tunnels and the tunnels and the tunnels. And the tunnels go under Fort Bliss. And I want to make that very clear. I knew that when I was a little girl. I knew that when I was a young teenager. I used to run El Paso all the time with my dad. We used to run together up and down those streets and everything. And we talked, and he absolutely told me there's tunnels everywhere. There's tunnels everywhere. And this is why the cartel wanted to, with the Mormon faction, um, put forth such a scheme to be imposters, and really it was an invasion of them. So they look very American, but they're Nova Casa Grandes. They are absolutely Mexican, and they need to make Mexico great again, right? But they're in the United States, and they and they want no good. They want no good for the United States. It's very simple because it's very obvious. Um, and so Woody Hunt, when we're talking about the planes, um, uh, would a businessman loan out his plane? And there's other ones. I'm not saying it was Woody Hunt. We know who it is, but um, would there be reason for an American businessman in El Paso to work with El Chapo's son and forcibly kidnap, remove, and kidnap El Mayo Zambada? And the answer is yes. Everything makes that totally possible. That they have long relationships, they've had long relationships, they probably have family relationships, and that they can absolutely, uh, make these deals to really illegally, without following protocol and regulation and laws, to take a person out of their country and move them internationally, you know, while hurting them, right? So it really is no question anymore about the Mormon faction cartel tied network that's working all of this. It's very obvious. And we have been filing, taking all measures we possibly can. Um, and, everything is coming out now. Everything is, it really, y'all, I really feel like everything is coming out because we just revisited Anthony Swafford, the MP that, did propaganda against Richard early on. And when asked who told him to do that, he said guard mount, which is Sean Bernabe, right? Which is Sean Bernabe. At the time, he had the skin in the game. So the cartel even reach onto Fort Bliss. That's what I wanted to say. The cartel reach onto Fort Bliss, and its um, power is growing. Right? Got to wait a little bit. Power is growing. Um, to get the prosecutors in line, because right now we don't have a prosecutor. James Montoya is not a prosecutor, right? So those prosecutors have to be put in position, and President Trump is getting so sabotaged on that. I think that's the greatest secret right now. Is people are like, why isn't he doing something? Why isn't he doing? Well, you have to have prosecutors, and the prosecutors have been sabotaged very clearly. So yeah, it's we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're doing everything we can to help, and we want our son's remains. I think it's a very selfish reason why we want to help, but it's the right reason, and that is we want our son's remains. And yeah, we'll see what happens after that. But um, there's absolutely no divide between these um, groups of children and that and over there and the Chihuahuan state government. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Laura, for coming on. Thank you, Danielle. It's been really absolutely amazing days, months, a month. So much has been happening in a month. Um, so forgive, uh, it is just I need to post on X, right? So keep posting what I post, keep sharing what I share, because that is why we're winning, because of everybody sharing and everybody posting. And I want to say thank you, Laura. Thank you, Danielle. I've seen both of you doing that, and that is so important to get accountability, because it has to scream from the stones, y'all, before they do anything. It has to scream from the stones. And I think we're doing pretty good calling out those that should have helped us and chose not to help us. That's a felony crime, and yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.